Welcome, 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 everyone, to Bookaccino Live for April. This year is flying by already. We have so many terrific books that we're going to be presenting today. It's even more than last month, so I'm really excited about this. So let me get us started. We're going to start off, as we always do, with showing you what your favorites were last month. And this is March's afternoon presentation. As you know, we did a spring presentation in the evening as well. So your top choice was The Paris Express by Emma Donoghue, then The Jackal's Mistress by Chris Bajalian, My Friends by Frederick Bachman, The Summer Guests by Tess Gerritsen, which is also one of my bets on selections, The Women on Platform 2 by Laura Anthony, The Story She Left Behind by Patty Callahan Henry, and The Martha's Vineyard Beach and Book Club by Martha Hall Kelly. As I mentioned, we did a spring presentation as well. So let's take a look at what happened at the evening presentation, which included more books because we were going for the whole season of spring. Here, number one was My Friends by Frederick Bachman. Number two is The River is Waiting by Wally Lamb. The next is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Next, The Maid's Secret by Nita Prose. Once again, Martha Hall Kelly's Martha's Vineyard Beach and Book Club. Kristen Harmel's The Stolen Life of Colette Marceau, and The Page Turner by Viola Shipman. So I love to see like what people pull and what they're interested in, and we take this like very much to heart. So let's get on with this presentation. We're going to start with fiction, as always. This book got a fabulous review yesterday in the New York Times. It's called Audition. It's by Katie Kitamura. It's on sale this week. So here's what we've got. Two people meet for lunch in a Manhattan restaurant. She's an accomplished actress in rehearsals for an upcoming premiere. He's attractive, troubled, and young. Young enough to be her son. So who is he to her and who is she to him? In Audition, two competing narratives unspool, rewriting our understanding of the roles we play every day: partner, parent, creator, muse, and the truth that every performance masks, especially from those we think that they know us most intimately. So there you've got Audition by Katie Kitamura, and I just love that cover. Next, we've got Big Chief by John Hickey, which is also getting a lot of buzz. It's also out this week. Mitch Cato, a young law student graduate and an aspiring political fixer, is an outsider in the homeland of his Anishinaabe ancestors. But alongside his childhood friend, tribal president Mac Beck, he runs the government of the Passage Rouge Nation and the tribe's Golden Eagle Casino and Hotel. On the eve of Mac's reelection, their tenuous grip on power is threatened by a nationally known activist and politician, Gloria Hawkins, and her young aide, Layla Beck, none other than Mac's estranged sister and Mitch's former love. In their struggle for control over Passage Rouge, the campaigns resort to bare knuckle political gamemanship. When an accident claims the life of Mitch's mentor, a power broker in the reservation's political scene, the election slides into chaos and pits Mitch against the only family he has. So there's Big Chief by John Hickey. Next, we've got The Float Test by Lynn Steger Strong. This was one of the book group speed dating titles, and it was also one of the books that we gave away. Here's what we've got is the Kenner siblings are at odds. Jen is a harried mom struggling under the weight of family obligations. Fred is a novelist who can't write, maybe because she's lost faith in storytelling itself. Jude is a recovering corporate lawyer. We're always recovering corporate lawyers, if you notice that, with her own story to tell and a grudge against her former favorite sister, Fred, former favorite sister. George the baby is estranged from his wife and harboring both a secret about his former employer and an ill-advised crush on one of his sister's friends. Gathered together after a major loss, each sibling needs the others more than ever, if only they could trust each other. So there we've got The Float Test. Next, from Jennifer Weiner, we've also got this out this week, The Griffin Sisters' Greatest Hits. Sisters Cassie and Zoe Grossberg were born just a year apart, but they could not have been more different. Zoe yearned for fame from the moment she could sing into a hairbrush. Remember singing into a hairbrush? Yeah, that was a microphone. It was very funny. Cassie was a musical prodigy who never felt at home in her own skin and preferred the safety of the shadows. On the brink of adulthood in the year 2000s, destiny intervened, catapulting the sisters into the spotlight as a pop sensation, the Griffin Sisters. But after a whirlwind year in the public eye, the band abruptly broke up. 2 decades later, Zoe's a housewife and Cassie's off the grid. Sisters aren't speaking, and the real reason for the Griffin sisters' breakup is still a mystery. Zoe's teenage daughter, Cherry, who's determined to be a star in spite of Zoe's warnings, is on a quest to learn the truth about what happened to the band all those years ago. So the Griffin sisters' greatest hits sounds like it's beach blanket fun. Next, we've got The Page Turner from Viola Shipman, also out this week. And this is one of our spring reading selections. We held a contest for this book in the last 24 hours that ended at noon. Emma Page grew up the black sheep in a bookish household, raised to believe that fine literature is the only worthy type of fiction. Her parents, self-proclaimed serious authors, and we all know what that means, serious authors, who run their own vanity press, the Mighty Pages, mingle in highbrow social circles that look down on anything that's too popular or mainstream. Her sister Jess is a powerful social media influencer whose stylish reviews can make or break a novel. Hiding her own romance manuscript from her disapproving parents, Emma finds inspiration at the family cottage among the fluff that they despise, the juicy summer romances that belonged to her late grandmother. But a chance discovery unearthed from Gigi's belongings reveals a secret that has the power to ruin her parents' business and destroy their reputation in the industry. A secret that has already fallen into the hands of an unscrupulous publishing insider with a grudge to settle. It's really interesting because inside publishing stories are always so much fun. I was reading this the other day, and she is going to turn out the light romance title, but her parents will not read or handle anything that is not exclusive and very definitely worthy of being a serious author. So it's really fun to see what she's up against. Next, we've got Sky Daddy by Kate Folk. It's out this week. During the week, Linda earns $20 an hour moderating comments for a video sharing platform, and then she rides the bus home to the windowless garage she rents on the outskirts of San Francisco. But on the last Friday of each month, she indulges her true passion, taking Bart to SFO for a round trip flight to a regional hub. The destination's irrelevant because each trip means a new date with a handsome stranger, a stranger whose intelligent windscreens, sleek fuselages, and powerful engines make Linda feel a way that no human ever could. Linda knows she can't tell anyone she's sexually obsessed with planes, nor can she reveal her belief that it's her destiny to marry one of her suitors, uniting with her soulmate plane for eternity. But then an opportunity arises to hasten her dream of eternal partnership, and the carefully balanced elements of her life begin to spin out of control. And I think she's looking for a 737, if I'm correct, what she's doing. And it's really funny. Years ago, one of the last 747 flights my son was on he flew over to Germany to take this flight back to San Francisco. And when he's getting off the plane, he's got this shirt that says, if it's not Boeing, I'm not going. And the pilot had heard about him and what he had done to, get on this flight and brought him up to the cockpit. And the pilot shot a picture of him up there. So I definitely know what it's like to have somebody who loves planes in their life. From Emily Henry, we've got Great Big Beautiful Lie. We know her as the #1 New York Times bestselling author of Funny Story. And this is one of those books that it's just a perfect beach read. Alice Scott is an eternal optimist, still dreaming of her big writing break. Hayden Anderson is a Pulitzer Prize-winning human thundercloud. And they're both on balmy Little Crescent Island for the same reason, to write the biography of a woman no one has seen in years, or at least meet with the octogenarian who claims to be the Margaret Ives tragic heiress, former tabloid princess, and daughter of one of the most storied and scandalous families of the 20th century. Margaret invites them both for a 1-month trial period, after which she will choose the person who will tell her story. But the problem is, Margaret is only giving each of them pieces of her story, pieces they can't swap to put together because of an ironclad NDA and an inconvenient yearning pulsing between them every time they're in the same room. I started to listen to this on audio, and it was really interesting because we've got Alice is there. She's like, thinking that this is her big opportunity. And all of a sudden, Hayden comes in the room and she's like, wait, what's this? She doesn't even know what the setup is so far. So it's definitely a fun beach read, kind of a romp. Next, we've got Summer Light on Nantucket by Nancy Thayer. I love telling the story that Nancy Thayer has a home with high hedges next to it. And she says, if you want story ideas, you just put your lawn chair next to it and you listen to people as they walk to the beach and they tell you stories about their lives. This is coming on April 22nd. Blythe Benedict is content working as a middle school teacher with three of her kids in the throes of teenagerhood and one not too far behind. She has plenty of drama to keep her busy every single day. But no amount of that drama could change the family's beloved annual summer trip to Nantucket. Blythe has always treasured the months spent on her island home away from home. However, this summer's getaway proves to be much more than she bargained for. Yes, there are sunny days enjoyed at the beach, but Blythe must contend with teenage angst, which is never fun, her ex mother in law's declining health, and a troubling secret involving her ex husband. Meanwhile, she reconnects with her first love. Knew that was coming, folks. Her former high school sweetheart, but their second time around romance becomes complicated when, whoa, another intriguing man enters the picture. So there we've got Summer Light on Nantucket. Next, we've got The Manor of Dreams by Christina Lai. This is coming on May 6th. Vivian Yin is dead. The first Chinese actress to win an Oscar, the trailblazing ingenue rose to fame in the 80s, only to disappear from the spotlight at the height of her career to live out the rest of her life as a recluse. Now her remaining family members are gathering for the reading of her will, and her daughters expect to inherit their childhood home, Vivian's grand, sprawling Southern California garden estate. But due to a last-minute change in the will, the house is passed on to another family instead, one that has suddenly returned after decades of estrangement. In hopes of staking their claim, both families move into the mansion. Love that part. As Vivian's daughters race to piece together what happened in the last week of their mother's life, disturbing visions and bizarre behaviors start to take hold of everyone in the house, forcing them to realize that they're being haunted by something far more sinister and vengeful than their regrets. So there's the Manor of Dreams. Next, Frederick Bachman. Yes, he's back. He's back with My Friends on May 6th. Most people don't even notice them. Three tiny figures sitting at the end of a long pier in the corner of one of the most famous paintings in the world. Most people think it's just a depiction of the sea, but Louisa, an inspiring artist herself, knows otherwise, and she's determined to find out the story of these three enigmatic figures. 25 years earlier, in a decent seaside town, a group of teenagers find refuge from their bruising home lives by spending long summer days on an abandoned pier, telling silly jokes, sharing secrets, and committing small acts of rebellion. Out of that summer emerges a transcendent work of art, a painting that unexpectedly will be placed into 18-year-old Louisa's care. She embarks on a surprise-filled cross-country journey to learn how the painting came to be and to decide what to do with it. So there's My Friends. Next, we've got historical fiction, and we're kicking it off with 6 Days in Bombay by Alka Joshi. It's coming on April 15th. When renowned painter Mira Novak arrives at Wadi Hospital in Bombay after a miscarriage, she's expected to make a quick recovery, and her nurse Sona is excited to learn more about the vivacious artist who shares her half-Indian identity. Sona, yearning for a larger life, finds herself carried away by Mira's stories of her travels and exploits and is shocked by accounts of the many lovers the painter has left scattered throughout Europe. When Mira dies quite suddenly and mysteriously, Sona falls under suspicion and her quiet life is upended. The key to proving Sona's innocence may lie in a cryptic note and four paintings Mira left in her care, sending the young woman on a mission to visit the painter's former friends and lovers across tumultuous Europe teetering towards war. On the precipice of discovering her own soul, Sona learns that the painter's charming facade hid a far more complicated, troubled soul. So you know Alka as the author of The Henna Artist. So you know in her hands this is going to be quite a story. Next, we've got Gabrielle by Anne Berest and her sister Claire. Um, Anne is the best-selling author of The Postcard, and I don't know how many of you read that. It's just an astounding story. This is coming on April 22nd. The year is 1908, the height of the Belle Epoque. A brilliant young French woman named Gabrielle, newly graduated from the most elite music school in Europe, meets a volcanic Spanish artist named Francis. Following a whirlwind romance, they marry and fall headlong into a Paris that is experimenting with new forms of living, thinking, and creating. Soon after marrying Francis, Gabrielle meets Marcel, another young artist, and soon Francis, Marcel, and Gabrielle are all involved in a fervent affair that will change the course of art history and redefine avant-garde. So the Belle Epoque gives way to rebellion and revolution, and the world descends into the devastation of World War I. Francis Picabia, Marcel Duchamp, and Gabrielle Buffet revolutionize art and open up new ways of seeing and thinking. This is a novel, but it's also based on someone that was in their family. Next, we've got The Lilac People by Milo Todd coming on April 29th. It's a really interesting story. In 1932 Berlin, a trans man named Bertie and his friends spend carefree nights at the El Dorado Club, the epicenter of Berlin's thriving queer community. An employee of the renowned Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld at the Institute of Sexual Science, Bertie works to improve queer rights in Germany and beyond. But everything changes as Hitler rises to power. The Institute is raided, the El Dorado is shuttered, and queer people are rounded up. Bertie barely escapes with his girlfriend Sophie to a nearby farm, and there they take on identities of an elderly couple and live for more than a decade in isolation. In the final days of the war, Bertie and Sophie find a young trans man collapsed on their property, still dressed in Holocaust prison clothes. They vow to protect him, not from the Nazis, but from the Allied forces who are arresting queer prisoners while liberating the rest of the country. So there we've got The Lilac People by Milo Todd. I have to admit that we heard a lot about Hitler renouncing anyone who was homosexual, transsexual, whatever. But I don't know if there's been another book that came out that really looks at the topic like this. Next, we've got Tough Luck by Sandra Dallas coming April 29th. After their mother dies, Haiti Richards and her younger brother Boots are put to work in an orphanage. Their father left 4 years earlier to find a gold mine in the Colorado Territory, and since then he's only sent 3 letters. Still, Haiti is certain that he is alive, has struck gold, and will soon send for them. But patience is not one of Haiti's virtues, and soon she and her brother make a break for it. Boots and Haiti, disguised as a boy, embark on a dangerous journey deep into Western territory. Along the way, Haiti learns fast that not only how to handle mules, oxen, and greedy men, but also that you're better off in a community. Hers includes a card shark, independent spinster sisters, and a very fierce dog. And when she arrives in Colorado and finds the truth about her father, Haiti will need all her friends for a get-even plot worthy of The Sting. I love stories that take place out west. We just finished watching 1923 on Paramount Plus and found it really be terrific. And 1944 is coming. So I love seeing stories about the West. I think I would live there in my past life. There was definitely a past life. Next, we've got Austin at Sea by Natalie Jenner coming on May 6th. In Boston in 1865, Charlotte and Henrietta Stevenson, daughters of a Massachusetts Supreme Court justice, have accomplished as much as women are allowed in those days. Inspired by the works of Jane Austen, they start a secret correspondence with Sir Francis Austen, her last surviving brother. He sends them an original letter from his sister and invites them to visit him in England. In Philadelphia, brothers Nicholas and Hazlitt Nelson, veterans of the recent Civil War and rare book dealers, are also in correspondence with Sir Francis Austen, who lures them to England with the promise of a never-before-seen rare Austen artifact to be evaluated. The Stevenson sisters sneak away without a chaperone to sail to England. On their ship are the Nelson brothers, writer Louisa May Alcott, Sarah Beth Gleason, and the wealthy daughter of Pennsylvania State Senator with her eye on the Nelsons, and a would-be last-minute chaperone to the Stevens sisters, Justice Thomas Nash. Its voyage and trip will dramatically change each of their lives in ways that are unforeseen. And Natalie Jenner is the best-selling author of the Jane Austen Society. Next, from Isabel Allende, we've got My Name is Amelia de Valle, and it's coming on May 6th. In San Francisco in 1866, an Irish nun, abandoned following a torrid relationship with a Chilean aristocrat, gives birth to a daughter named Amelia de Valle. Raised by a loving stepfather, Amelia grows into an independent thinker and a self-sufficient young woman. To pursue her passion for writing, Amelia is willing to defy societal norms. At the age of 17, she begins to publish pulp fiction using a man's pen name. When these fictional worlds can no longer satisfy her sense of adventure, she turns to journalism, convincing an editor at the Daily Examiner to hire her. And there she's paired with another talented reporter, Eric Whalen. As Amelia proves herself, her restlessness returns until an opportunity arises to cover a brewing war in Chile. She seizes it, as does Eric. And while there, she meets her estranged father and delves into the violent confrontation in the country where her roots lie. So there you've got the latest from Isabel Allende. Next, let's do some thrillers and mysteries. Let's start out with The Maid's Secret by Anita Prose, a Maid novel. This is actually the conclusion of the series. I'm reading it right now. I'm reading and listening to it. I'm going back and forth on what I'm doing, really enjoying it. Molly Gray's life is about to change in ways she never could have imagined. As the esteemed head maid and special events manager of the Regency Grand Hotel, two good things are just around the corner: the taping of the hit Antiquities TV show Hidden Treasures, and her wedding to Juan Manuel. When Molly brings in some old trinkets to be appraised on the show, one item is revealed to be a rare and coveted artifact worth millions. Molly becomes rags to riches sensation. An immediate frenzy swirls as she prepares to sell her priceless treasure. And then on auction day, the treasure suddenly vanishes, and Molly and her friends find themselves at the center of the boldest art heist in recent history. The keys to this mystery lie in her past, the long-forgotten diary written by Molly's gran. And for the first time ever, Molly learns about her grandmother's secrets. As fate would have it, Gran's greatest love was someone Molly knows quite well. What's interesting is the book shifts back and forth, and so do the voices in the story as they read from Gran's novel. So we finally get to meet Gran all these books later. And then at the same time, we're hearing what's happening with Molly. So it's quite well done. I'm really enjoying it. Next, we've got Murder at Gull's Nest by Jess Kidd, also on sale this week. 1954, when her former novice dependable letters stop, Nora Breen asks to be released from her vows. Haunted by a line in Frida's letter, Nora arrives at Gull's Nest, a charming hotel in Gore-on-Sea in Kent. A seaside town, a place of fresh air and relaxed constraints. It's the perfect place for a new start. Nora hides her identity and pries into the lives of her fellow guests. But when a series of bizarre murders rattles the occupants of Gull's Nest, it's time to ask if a dark past can ever really be left behind. And I love books like this. I love it when you're in a place and you get to know a bunch of people that you never would have crossed paths with. And this happened years ago. There was a big storm in a hotel. I just got to meet everybody in the lobby and we became friends and we saw each other many more times. And it was basically because we were all thrust in this one place and there's no way we ever would have crossed paths beyond that. Next, we've got The Death of Us by Abigail Dean. She's the New York Times bestselling author of Girl A. It's on sale April 15th. Together, Edward and Isabel move to London. They're young and in love, occupied by friends, work, and fun. But late on a spring evening, when they are 30 years old, their home is invaded by a serial killer. In the wake of this violation, each tries to come to terms with a night that changed everything, and their marriage began to crumble. 25 years later, the tormentor is caught, and Edward and Isabel reunite for his sentencing. Isabel has waited years for the man that nearly ended her life to be brought to justice. Edward has tried to think about anything else. As they prepare to deliver impact statements in the public eye, it's time to revisit their love story. Will they finally be able to confront the secrets, longings, and lies that tore them apart? Will the horror of that night be the death of them? Sounds like a really interesting plot. Next, we've got Murder by Cheesecake. Love the title. By Rachel Ekstrom Courage. This is coming on April 15th. Rose's cousin is eloping to Miami, and Rose is playing host. She can't balance the groom's family snobbery against the traditional St. Olaf wedding week guidelines. Her hometown may never accept her cousin again. Dorothy quickly realizes that she needs a date with whom she can exchange wedding related wisecracks. Turning to a newfangled VHS dating service, she believes she's found the ideal conversationalist. Unfortunately, what looks good on TV can actually be a total jerk in real life. Seems she'll have to enjoy the company of Sophia, Blanche, and whoever Blanche has targeted for a hookup. But then Dorothy's date is found dead, face planted in an otherwise scrumptious looking cheesecake. The four besties must ID the real killer, get the should be happy couple down the aisle, and make sure nobody from St. Olaf gets lost in the wilds of Miami. So there we've got a Golden Girls cozy mystery from Rachel Extrin Courage. And I think it sounds like a lot of fun. Courage. I think it sounds like a lot of fun for a book. Next, we've got A Song for Katie Shane by Jim Fusilli. Jim is an author I've known for a really long time. He was the music editor for the Wall Street Journal for years and wrote about just about every rock star out there. He could tell fabulous, fabulous, fabulous stories. So this time he's got a story where, once again, it's in taking place in the music world. For the first time in his life, journalist Jack Fiorelli is out of work. 65-year-old music critic is adrift. Not even his wife Molly can lift him out of his funk. And then a reader calls with a tip, and Jack is thrust into a story involving Katie Shane, a long dead singer songwriter, and what very well might be her murder. Traveling across Greenwich Village and down to Nashville, Jack unravels long forgotten facts that led to Katie's death. In doing so, he puts himself at a mortal risk for the first time in his career. Is it worth the effort? All this for an unknown singer and her songs? Though beaten and battered, Jack answers with a resounding yes. And I really love the way that cover looks. Next, from David Baldacci, we've got Strangers in Time. It's coming on April 15th. And this was one of the book group speed dating titles. We did our presentation back in November. Without parents, peerage, or merit, 14-year-old Charlie Matters steals what he needs, living day to day until he's old enough to enlist to fight the Germans. After barely surviving the blitz, Charlie knows there's no telling when a falling bomb might end his life. 15-year-old Molly Wakefield has just returned to a nearly unrecognizable London. One of millions of children to have been evacuated to the countryside, Molly has been away from her home for nearly 5 years. But now she's confronted by a devastating reality. Neither of her parents are there. Charlie and Molly find an unexpected ally and protector in Ignatius Oliver and solace at his bookshop, the Bookkeep. But Charlie's escapades in the city have not gone unnoticed, and someone has been following Molly since she returned to London. And Ignatius is harboring his own secrets, which could have terrible consequences for them all. It's a very different book for David Baldacci. I haven't known him to write about this time in history, and I understand he had really enjoyed writing it. So it's something different from him, something to keep your eye out for. Next, we've got The Amalfi Curse by Sarah Penner, and you know her as a best-selling author of The Lost Apothecary. It's coming on April 29th. Haven Ambrose, a trail-breaking nautical archaeologist, has come to the sun-soaked village of Positano to investigate the mysterious shipwrecks along the Amalfi coast. But Haven is hoping to find more than old artifacts beneath the azure waters. She's secretly on a quest to locate a trove of priceless gemstones her late father spotted on his final dive. Upon Haven's arrival, strange maelstorms and misfortunes start plaguing the town. Is it nature or something more sinister at work? As Haven searches for her father's sunken treasure, she begins to unearth a centuries-old tale of ancient sorcery and one woman's quest to save her lover and her village by using the legendary art of, let me see if I can do this one, Scriheria. I'll try that. A magical ability to harness the ocean. Could this magic be behind Positano's latest calamities? Haven must unravel the Amalfi curse before the region is destroyed forever. So that's got a lot of power for her right there. Next, we've got A Fashionably French Murder by Colleen Cambridge. This is one of the American in Paris mysteries that she's written. This is the third installment of the series following Mastering the Art of French Murder and A Murder Most French. And hold on to those titles because we're going to get to something about this a little bit later in the presentation. If there's one art that the French have mastered as well as fine cuisine, it's haute couture. Tabitha and Julia are already accustomed to sampling the delights of the former. Now fashion is returning to the forefront in Paris as sobering hues of wartime are replaced by vibrant colors and the ultra-feminine silhouettes influenced by Christian Dior's New Look. If you haven't seen the New Look on Apple TV, it's absolutely a terrific show. I digress. Back to the story. Tabitha and Julia join a friend for a private showing, an exclusive fashion atelier, Maison Lanet. The evening goes well, but when Tabitha returns later that evening to search for a lost glove, she finds the lights still on and the couturier dead, strangled by a length of lace. The shop manager suspects that a jealous rival, perhaps Dior himself, committed the crime. Tabitha dismisses that idea, but when another body is found, it's apparent that someone is targeting the employees of Maison Lanet. So there you go, A Fashionably French Murder. Sounds like a lot of fun. Now we've got How to Seal Your Own Fate by Kristen Perrin. This is coming on April 29th. She's back with the second novel in her Castle Knoll series, How to Solve Your Own Murder. Present day Annie Adams is just settling into life in Castle Knoll when local fortune teller Peony Lane shares a cryptic message with her. When Peony is found dead only hours later inside the locked Gravesdown estate, Annie quickly realizes that someone is out to make her look guilty. Annie has no choice but to delve into the dark secrets of Castle Knoll in order to find out just what Peony is trying to warn her about. Now let's go to 1967. A year has passed since her friend Emily disappeared, and teenage Frances Adams finds herself caught between two men. Ford Graveston is one of the only remaining members of a family known for its wealth and dubious uses of power. Archie Foyle is a local who can't hold down a job. When Frances teams up with Archie to investigate the car crash that claimed the lives of Ford's family, it quickly becomes clear it was no accident. So there you've got How to Seal Your Own Fate. Next, we've got The Murder Machine by Heather Graham coming on April 29th. The state-of-the-art smart home has everything. Next-generation entertainment system, an ultra-modern kitchen where every appliance is online, and even a personal AI could control it all. Standing above is the owner's lifeless body. FBI agent Jude McKenzie is faced with the daunting task of discovering how the woman was killed in her own home. How do you catch a murder that doesn't leave any fingerprints? Enter Special Agent Victoria Tennant, whose familiarity with cybercrime reveals the stark truth. A machine can only do what it's been directed to do. As a number of grisly accidents begin to rise, the pair must race to uncover the perpetrator, even as they find themselves caught in their digital crosshairs. So there we've got The Murder Machine. Next, it's got See How They Fall. It's coming from Rachel Paris, from Scarlet, which is a really good mystery imprint. It's kind of new and small, but they've got some fabulous books coming out. When Skye married into the wealthy Turner family, she thought she was entering paradise. But now, several years later, she remains uneasy amid the opulence of her husband's world, struggling with her own secrets and working to maintain a normal life with her young daughter, Tilly. Skye's delicate balance is undone when the family patriarch, Sir Campbell Turner, dies suddenly, and an illegitimate heir comes forward to stake his claim in the luxury goods empire the old man leaves behind. Reluctantly, the Turners receive the newcomer at an intimate weekend retreat at, let me see if I can do this, Yallambee, the family seaside estate. But tempers flare, egos crash within their first few hours together, and the night ends in a tragedy that leaves one dead and another fighting for life. Convinced there's more to the suspicious death than a simple accident, Sergeant May O'Connor continues to search for answers, but pulling at these threads may just tear down the entire Turner empire. So there you've got See How They Fall. Next, from Jeffrey Deaver, we've got South Out of Nowhere. And this is coming on May 6th. I don't know how many of you watch the show with Coulter Shaw on CBS. on Sunday nights. I am like obsessed with this show Tracker. I really enjoy watching it. And I always seem to watch it a night later for some reason. Jeffrey Deaver continues the Beloved series featuring reward seeker Colter Shaw, which is the basis for CBS's Tracker, currently in its second season. When a levee collapses in Hinawa, a small town in Northern California, Colter Shaw is brought on by his sister Dorian, a disaster response specialist, to help locate a family swept away by the raging water with mere hours to survive. But a surprise attack along the river obstructs Coulter's urgent search. The siblings are forced to consider a new reality. Is the levee at risk of falling from natural causes, or is someone sabotaging it? Coulter and Dorian must race against a ticking clock to uncover the truth and save the citizens before the village washes out completely, destroying everything and everyone in its path. So there's South of Nowhere. Here's got some memoirs, biographies, and other nonfiction. We're going to kick it off by E.A. Hanks, The 10, which is on sale this week. The trusted loaded-up minivan, Minnie E.A. Hanks, follows the same route as her long-ago road trip with her mother in an attempt to better understand the complicated woman who gave her life. Along the way, she follows her mother's diaries and her own recollections of the route. She begins to uncover secrets, some unexpectedly wonderful, others darker and more violent than she ever imagined, which bring more questions than answers. Reckoning with the past, the present, her memories, and herself, Hanks brings us along a beautiful voyage towards understanding how the stories we tell about the places we're from ultimately become the stories we tell about the people we are. And yes, this is Tom Hanks' daughter from his first marriage. So there you go. Memoir of Family and the Open Road. Next, we got Blood in the Water by Casey Sherman, who does a fabulous job of telling a true crime story. And this is the untold story of a family tragedy. When Nathan Carman, a young man with a complicated past, is miraculously rescued from a lifeboat bobbing in the unforgiving North Atlantic, questions swirl about the fate of his mother, who is presumed to have drowned when their fishing boat sank. Nathan is in remarkably good shape for being lost at sea for a week, and his account of exactly what happened out there on the waves raises questions from family members and law enforcement. Nathan's story of a fishing trip gone awry doesn't quite add up, and suspicion mounts. The mysterious murder of Nathan's multimillionaire grandfather a few years before had made Nathan's mother an extremely wealthy woman. With a $7 million fortune at stake, did Nathan commit the ultimate betrayal, or is there more to this tragic tale than meets the eye? So there's Blood in the Water. Next, we've got The Book of Alchemy, and it's by Saluka Jawad. I had the pleasure of meeting her. Tom Donadio did too, over a lunch. And this is a creative practice for an inspired life. From the time that she was young, Sulika kept a journal. She used it to mark life's biggest occasions and to weather its most ferocious storms. Journaling has buoyed her through illness, heartbreak, and deepest uncertainty, and she's not alone. For so many people, keeping a journal is an essential tool for navigating both personal peaks and valleys and the collective challenges of modern life. And more than ever, we need a space for puzzling through. In this book, Salika explores the art of journalism and shares everything she's learned about this life-altering practice that can help us tap into the mystical trait that exists in every human, creativity. She's gathered wisdom from 100 writers, artists, and thinkers in the form of essays and writing prompts, and their insights invite us to inhabit a more inspired life. She's married to John Baptiste, and if you want to see something truly fabulous, besides reading her last book, Between Two Kingdoms, watch on Netflix American Symphony, which is a fabulous piece that they put together of a piece he was writing at the same time she was going through illness, and it won all kinds of awards, and it's well done. Also, she's a brilliant artist, and she actually painted. It's a large painting that they took a part of the background for this cover. So it's definitely a book worth exploring from somebody who's very, very creative. Next, from Joan Didion, we've got Notes to John coming on April 22nd. This book to me is a little controversial, and let's see if you can figure out why. In November 1999, Joan Didion began to seeing a psychiatrist because, as she wrote to a friend, her family had had a rough few years. She described the sessions in a journal she created for her husband, John Gregory Dunn. For several months, Didion recorded conversations with the psychiatrist in meticulous detail. The initial sessions focused on alcoholism, adoption, depression, anxiety, guilt, and the heartbreaking complexities of her relationship with her daughter Quintana. The subjects evolved to include her work, which she was finding difficult to maintain for sustained periods. There were discussions about her own childhood and the question of legacy, or as she puts it, what it's been worth. The analysis would continue with her for more than a decade. Now, it sounds fabulously interesting, but I would not want my notes, the things that I've written down and scribbled down on papers, to go anywhere. And I just kind of wonder whether this was meant to be a book or not. I'm just going out on a limb saying that, though it sounds amazingly interesting. And here's an interesting Joan Didion story. She won the National Book Award years ago. And the next night, I was at the Miami Book Fair and I went to listen to her speak. And I had the book in hand and I walked out. Got in my car, my rental car, and I was sitting there and I was like, you know what? Go back and get that book signed. I'm not a big person on getting books signed at all, but I said, really love this book. Go back and get it signed. And sure enough, I went back inside and stood on a very long line to meet her and told the story of how I'd seen her win the night before and how wonderful it was to see her in person. So that's my only Joan Didion story. She's got lots more to tell. Next, we've got My Next Breath by Jeremy Renner. You recognize the guy? Do you remember him? He's a two-time Oscar nominee, was the second most Googled person in 2023, and not for his impressive filmography. On New Year's Day 2023, I don't know how many of you remember this, a 14,000-pound snowplow crushed him. Somehow able to keep breathing for more than half an hour, he was subsequently rushed to the ICU, where he would face multiple surgeries and months of painful rehabilitation. In My Next Breath, he writes in blistering detail about his accident and the aftermath. The retelling is not just merely a gruesome accident of what happened to account of what happened to him. It's a call to action and forged companionship between reader and the author as he recounts his recovery journey and reflects on the impact of his suffering. And I remember watching a piece about him. I can't remember whether it was on a news show or whatever, of exactly what happened. He was the one that was plowing his street for his neighbors. And he was the one that had the snowplow and he went out to do something, make a change on it, and it rolled over him. And it's absolutely an amazing story that he's alive today. Next, we've got Show Don't Tell by Christine Barry. It's coming on April 29th. It's going to be one of our spring reading titles. So keep in mind, get ready for this one, folks. For Christine Gaspari and generations of young women in her small hometown, Mrs. Courthouse hasn't been just a high school English teacher. She offered a window to a bigger world. Her focus on her students means that most never learned about most the her focus on her students means that most never learned about her. How before making a career pivot into teaching, she'd marched on Washington with Dr. Martin Luther King, attended JFK's inauguration, and built a career as a business leader when women couldn't yet open finance accounts in their own names. Now a celebrated writer herself, Christine reunites with her beloved teacher just as Mrs. Courthouse is newly retired, widowed, and diagnosed with advanced breast cancer. The two women reflect on their intertwined journeys over the past 30 years, Mrs. Courthouse's enduring insight on self-determination, spirituality, and the teaching profession takes on a deeper meaning. So it's a writer, her teacher, and the power of sharing our stories. That sounds terrific. Next, from Jill Bialowski, who is a very well-known editor at W.W. Norton. She's got a book of her own, Personal History of My Mother, called The End is the Beginning. When Iris Yvonne Bialowski died in assisted care facility on March 29, 2020, it unleashed a torrent of emotions in her daughter, Jill. Grief, of course, but also guilt, confusion, and doubt, all of which were compounded by the arrival of the COVID-19 pandemic, which made it impossible for Jill to be with her mother as she was dying and to attend her mother's funeral. Starting with her mother's end and the physical cognitive decline that led her to a care home, The End is the Beginning explores Iris's battle with depression, the tragedy of a daughter's suicide, a failed second marriage, The death of her beloved first husband only 5 years into their young marriage, her joyful teenage years, and the trauma of losing her own mother at just 8 years old. So I think this is going to be a really interesting look into another person's life. And Jill is such a gifted writer. I just know it will be a very well done story. She is also the New York Times bestselling author of History of a Suicide. Next, we've got Lessons from My Teachers by Sarah Ruhl, and you may recognize her as the author of Smile. This is on sale on May 6th. Based on her popular class at Yale, Sarah's essay collection is a testament to the singular impact of teachers across every stage of our lives. Anchored in stories both personal and universal, drawing on Sarah's experiences from her parents and children with her school teachers, creative influences, and beyond, Lessons from My Teachers offers an uplifting perspective on our basic human need to teach and learn from each other as we navigate the surprising paths that shape our lives. Meant to be shared with loved ones and role models alike, and perfect for marking important seasons and milestones, Lessons from My Teachers provides an opportunity to reflect on the human connection between teacher and student and the times in which ourselves have assumed each role. I think this would be a great year-end present for the perfect teacher. Next, we've got June titles to look forward to, because yes, June is right around the corner. Kicking it off, we've got The First Gentleman by Bill Clinton and James Patterson. Yep, American has a powerful new president, and her husband's on trial for murder, coming on June 2nd. President's up for re-election. Her husband's on trial for murder. Is the first gentleman a killer? A pair of brilliant investigative journalists set out to answer that burning question about the NFL star turned political spouse. It's got twists and turns and authenticity one expects from number one best-selling authors of The President is Missing and The President's Daughter. So Bill Clinton and James Patterson reunite again. Next, we've got Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I hear this is her best book. Francesca, who's on our team, read it, and she just loved it. It's coming on June 3rd. Joan Goodwin is content with her life as a professor of physics and astronomy at Rice University as an aunt to her precocious niece, Frances. That is until she comes across an advertisement seeking the first women scientists to join NASA's space shuttle program. Suddenly, Joan burns to be one of the first people to go into space. Selected from a pool of thousands of applicants in the summer of 1980, Joan begins training at Houston's Johnson Space Center alongside an exceptional group of fellow candidates. As the new astronauts become unlikely friends and prepare for their first flights, Joan finds a passion and a love she never could have imagined. In this new life, she begins to question everything she knows about her place in the observable universe. And then, in December 1984, on mission STS-LR-9, it all changes in an instant. I had to do that. Okay, you know her as the author of Daisy Jones and the Six and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Next, we've got The Ghostwriter from Julie Clark. Julie Clark writes such a great thriller. It's coming on June 3rd. June 1975, the Taylor family shatters in a single night when two teenage siblings are found dead in their own home. The only surviving sibling, Vincent, never shakes the whispers and accusations that he was the one who killed them. Decades later, the legend only grows as a career as a horror writer skyrockets. Ghostwriter Olivia Dumont has spent her entire professional life hiding the fact that she is the only child of Vincent Taylor. And now, on the brink of financial ruin, she's offered a job to ghostwrite her father's last book. What she doesn't know, though, is this project is another one of his lies, because it's not another horror book he wants her to write. After 50 years of silence, Vincent Taylor is finally ready to talk about what really happened that night in 1975. So there we go. Julie Clark, take us away. Next, from Wendy Wax, who's been off the scene for a while but writes a great beach book, we've got Just Beachy coming on June 3rd. After losing her longtime acting gig in the hit show Murder 101, Sydney Ryan decides she needs a break from Hollywood politics. She heads to Treasure Island, Florida, where her grandmother has been visiting and now refuses to leave. But Sydney's plan to lie low for a bit grows awry as she's quickly stepped up in her grandmother's now flourishing social life. Grand is helping her neighbor Myra open a bookstore in Paso de Grill. But when someone breaks into Grand's house repeatedly, Sydney realizes that her grandmother is keeping something from her. Determined to ferret out the truth and protect her grandmother, she enlists the help of the 10 Beach Road ladies. That's Wendy's other book club folks, and Luke, a local police officer who was once her high school crush. While Sydney puts her television crime solving skills to the test, she decides on acting on the sizzling chemistry between herself and Luke. So everything is just beachy. Next, we've got Far and Away by Amy Popple, which is coming on June 10th. Perfect strangers, Lucy and Greta have agreed to a house swap, and they're going to regret it. Lucy's hometown of Dallas has gone from home sweet home to vicious snake pit in the blink of an eye after her son makes a mistake he can't undo. And Greta's beloved flat in Berlin is suddenly up for grabs when her husband Otto takes a dream job in Texas without even telling her. In their rush to leave town, Lucy and Greta make a deal, pack their bags, and thanks to martinis, desperation, and some very rusty German, have absolutely no idea what they're getting themselves into. Trading summer charm and barbecue for European sophistication and schnitzel, the two women get a lot more than a change of scenery as they move into each other's houses, neighborhoods, and lives. Through jet lag, culture shock, suspiciously nice neighbors, and scandals that refuse to be left behind, Lucy and Greta will have to decide if they can ever go home again. So there's Far and Away. Next, we've got Jill Is Not Happy by Kara Ruda. It's coming on June 10th. If they ask Jill Tingley, she'll tell you that she and her husband Jack are college sweethearts living the dream in Southern California. Wealthy, popular, and genetically blessed, theirs is an enviable life, though they've grown distant in recent years. Newly empty nesting with their daughter Maggie away at college, Jill suggests a road trip to reconnect. Jack would rather do anything than drive to Utah with his wife. He's only staying in this marriage because of a shared secret, tragedy in the past that he wants to keep buried, and for his daughter's sake. But Jack is finished with the charade of his marriage. He's filing divorce as soon as they return, no matter what. But he doesn't realize what else Jill is hiding. So it becomes a cat and mouse road trip as a cunning wife, think Ripley in yoga pants, and a reluctant husband match wits and drive each other to the edge. Jill's not happy, and I bet she's trying to be happy. Next, from S.A. Cosby, whose book is highly anticipated. It's King of Ashes, coming on June 10th. When eldest son Roman Carruthers is summoned home after his father's car accident, he finds his younger brother Dante in debt to dangerous criminals and his sister Via exhausted from holding the family and the family business together. Via and their father, who run Carruthers Crematorium in the rundown central Virginia town of Jefferson Run, see death up close every day. But mortality draws even closer when it becomes clear that the crash has landed their father in a coma that was no accident, and Dante's recklessness has placed them in real danger. Roman, a financial whiz with a head for numbers and a talent for making his clients rich, has some money to help buy his brother out of trouble. But in his work with wannabe tough guys, he's forgotten that there are real gangsters out there. As his bargaining chips beginning to go up in smoke, Roman realizes he has only one thing left to offer to save his brother, himself and his own particular set of skills. Well, that sounds like James Bond. Next, from Wally Lamb, we've got The River is Waiting, and it is coming on June 10th. It's a new publisher for Wally Lamb. We've got Corby Ledbetter is struggling. New fatherhood, the loss of his job, a growing secret addiction had thrown his marriage to his beloved Emily into a tailspin. And that's before he causes a tragedy that tears the family apart. Sentenced to prison, Corby struggles to survive life on the inside, where he bears witness to frightful acts of brutality, but also experiences in small acts of kindness, an elemental kinship with a prison librarian who sees his light, and some of his fellow offenders, including a tender-hearted cellmate and a troubled teen desperate for a role model. Buoyed by them and his mother's enduring faith in him, Corby begins to transcend the boundaries of his confinement, sustained by his hope that that mercy and reconciliation might still be possible. Can his crimes ever be forgiven by those he loves? And it's interesting because Wally had a very long time of working with prisoners and working on their writing and telling their own stories. So I'm wondering what that ends up being woven into this book. Next, from Jess Walter, we've got So Far Gone. You know him as the author of Beautiful Ruins, on sale on June 10th. Reese Kinnick has gone off the grid at Thanksgiving a few years back. A fed up Reese punched his conspiracy theorist son-in-law in the mouth, chucked his smartphone out the car window, and fled for a cabin in the woods with no one around except a pack of hungry raccoons. Now his own life is about to land right back on his crumbling doorstep. Can this failed husband and father, a man with no internet and a car that barely runs, reemerge into a broken world to track down his missing daughter and save his sweet, precocious grandchildren from the members of a dangerous militia? With the hope of his caustic ex-girlfriend, a bipolar retired detective, and his only friend who happens to be furious with him, Kinnick heads off on a wild journey through cultural lunacy and the rumble of a life he thought he'd left behind. Next, from Riley Sager, we've got With a Vengeance, coming on June 10th. In 1942, six people destroyed Anna Matheson's family. 12 years later, she's ready for retribution. Under false pretenses, Anna has lured those responsible for her family's downfall onto a luxury train from Philadelphia to Chicago, an overnight journey of 13 hours. Her goal: confront the people who have wronged her, get them to confess their own crimes, and deliver them into the hands of authorities waiting at the end of the line. But Anna's plan is quickly derailed by the murder of one of the passengers. As the train barrels through the night, it becomes clear that someone else on board is enacting their own form of revenge, and they won't stop until everyone else is dead. So there we've got With a Vengeance, and it's sort of like a locked room on the train. So we've got Don't Open Your Eyes from Liv Constantine, coming on June 17th. Annabelle Reynolds has everything she's ever wanted, so why is she subtly plagued by disturbing dreams of a future where she hates her husband and her daughter's lives are at risk? When details from the dreams, details she couldn't possibly have predicted, begin to materialize, she realizes they aren't just dreams, but rather premonitions of a terrifying future. They all point to a singular choice, an unknown moment that holds Annabelle's life in the balance. Annabelle has a dream that her daughter Scarlet is in immediate danger. Someone wants Scarlet dead, and Annabelle has no idea who or why, and suddenly every choice she makes is fraught with peril, with no inkling of which move could bring this terrifying vision to life. As Annabelle's present life starts to collide with the future in her dreams, she wrestles with how much control she really has over her destiny and whether she can change what is meant to be. Next, we've got Fox, coming from Joyce Carol Oates on June 17th. Who's Frances Fox? Charming English teacher, new to the idyllic Langhorne Academy, Fox beguiles many of his students, their parents, and his colleagues at the elite boarding school, while leaving others wondering where he came from and why his biography is so enigmatic. Two brothers discover Fox's car half submerged in a pond in a local nature preserve and parts of an unidentified body strewn upon the nearby woods. The entire community, including Detective Horace Wender and his deputy, began asking disturbing questions about Francis Fox and who he might really be. So we've got Fox. Next, we've got Murder Takes a Vacation by Laura Lippman, also coming on June 17th. Mrs. Blossom has a knack for blending into the background, which is an asset during her days, assisting private investigator Tess Monahan. But she finds a winning lottery ticket in a parking lot and everything changes. She's determined to see the world, something that she feels is passing her by. Mrs. Blossom booked her cruise through France on the MS Solitaire. She did not expect to meet Alan on her transatlantic flight. He's the first man that sparked something inside of her since her beloved husband passed. She didn't expect Alan to be found dead 24 hours later in Paris, a city he wasn't supposed to be in. And now Mrs. Blossom doesn't know who to trust on board the ship. So where we've got 8 days, 7 nights, one dead body. From Lisa Jewell, who I just heard talk about this book a little bit ago today at a publisher presentation, we've got Don't Let Him In, coming on June 24th. Ned Radcliffe is a man of substance and good taste. He has a smile that could melt the coldest heart and a knack for putting others at ease. He is just what Nina Swan needed in her life after her husband's unexpected death. But to Nina's adult daughter, Ash, Nick seems to be too slick, too polished, too good to be true. Without telling her mother, Ash begins digging into Nick's past. What she finds is more than unsettling. Martha is a florist living in a neighboring town with her infant daughter and her devoted husband, Alastair. But lately, Alastair has been traveling more and more frequently for work, disappearing for days at a time. And when Martha questions him about his frequent absences, he always has a legitimate explanation, but Martha can't shake the feeling that something's not right. Nina, Martha, and Ash are on a collision course with a shocking truth that's far darker than anyone could have imagined. I'll just leave you that Lisa watched a lot of true crime where the guy was doing all kinds of crazy things as just before she wrote this book. She was addicted to the podcast and the shows. Next, we've got El Dorado Drive, which is coming from Megan Abbott on June 24th. The three Bishop sisters grew up unprivileged in the moneyed suburbs of Detroit. But as the auto industry declines, so did their fortunes. Harper, the youngest, is barely making ends meet when her beloved, charismatic sister Pam, currently in the middle of a contentious battle with her ex-husband, and her eldest sister Deborah approach her about joining an exciting new club. The Wheel offers women like themselves, middle-aged and of declining means, a way to make their own money, independent of husbands or families. And quickly, however, the Wheel's success and their addiction to it leads to greater and greater risks, and a crime so shocking it threatens to bring everyone down with it. So there we've got El Dorado Drive. Love that cover. You know, that's my colors. Okay, these are notable April paperback releases, and hidden under my picture up on the top is there's an asterisk. Any of the books that are asterisks, I've interviewed the authors, and that would be Did I Tell You by Genevieve Kingston. We've got Knife by Salman Rushdie, Lessons in Chemistry, we did an interview with Bonnie Garmis, Mitch Albom, The Little Liar, Table for Two by Amor Tolls, Tom Lake by Ann Patchett, Far Side of the Desert, Beatrice Williams' Husband and Lovers, I did interview her, Don Winslow's City in Ruins, the Paris Novel by Ruth Reichel, I interviewed her, Ellen Hildebrand's Swan Song, and Remarkably by Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt, which we did a Bookaccino live book group with. So really interesting books to take a look at. Next, we've got my early bets on selections from the year and a couple that are coming up, including One Good Thing by Georgia Hunter, who I interviewed last week, Saltwater by Katie Hayes, who I interviewed this week and should be up this week, and The Lost Baker of Vienna that is coming in August. The other books are out. One that is really catching on and has a lot of steam is Broken Country. I read it, loved it, and it's doing extremely well. It's selling extremely well, and a lot of people are falling in love with it. So that's something to take a look at, as well as any of these other books. Here are my recent talked to interviews. Georgia Hunter, One Good Thing. You also know her as the author of We Were the Lucky Ones, and we talk a lot about World War II and things that are happening as of October 7th and what she wants to do with students today. Very interesting interview. Jeff Hobbs and I talked about Seeking Shelter, which is a book about homelessness out in LA. Really good. He is the author of The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. Highly recommend. And Broken Country again, Claire Leslie Hall. Terrific interview with her. She's in the UK. For spring reading, these are this year's featured titles. And I believe that we have one left, Tom, and it's going to be trying to read this thing down below. Tom, can you just
Yep,
jump on and say what that one is? Go ahead.
it's Show Don't Tell, which we had presented a little bit ago. That is going to be our final contest going up next Tuesday, April 15th at noon Eastern.
So there you go. Thank you. There's a bar that's over it for me.
Okay.
Our book reporter word of mouth contest selections this month, the prizes are Heartwood by Andy Gage, which is getting huge uh, press, and it's a Read with Jenna pick, and the final book in the Maid series, The Maid's Secret by Nita Prose. And you enter by the 11th, I believe it is, April 11th at noon, which is this week, enter to win these two titles. All you do is jump on, tell us what you're reading, and tell us why you love it, and you're entered in our word of mouth contest. We also have a special contest that is running on reading group guides, and it's to win one of 25 copies of Mastering the Art of French Murder. Remember, I talked about Colleen Cambridge's latest book earlier in the presentation. This is the first installment, American in Paris Mystery Series. So enter by Wednesday, May 14th at noon Eastern Time to win a copy of this book. And we have a Bookaccino live event with an author who's absolutely amazing. People have fallen in love with this book. My book group read it, and we actually did a talk with Marjan. And I highly recommend, if you haven't read it, read it now and join us for this event on April 29th at 8 o'clock event, 8 p.m., where we discuss the Lion Women of Tehran. And sign up is available on both Book Reporter and Reading Group Guides. And our next Bookaccino Live book preview afternoon event, a preview of books releasing from May 13th through June 3rd and a peek ahead at July. Oh my gosh, how do we do that? Will be on Wednesday, May 14th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And sign up is available on bookreporter.com and readinggroupguides.com. And we thank all of you for joining us today to be part of this presentation. We really, really had such a good time sharing all of these titles with you.